Interestingly, as a patriarchal society, men are very often removed from personal emotions. We've had grown-ass men burst into tears in this gallery.
Just by coming in and looking at a painting, that really...
The amount of men bringing their kids into the gallery.
Just to look at
and
an art
talk
and
to their
start
kids and ask their kids' opinions. We're changing, we're evolving.
This episode, we delve into the exciting industry of art. If art is something that you appreciate and want to learn more about and perhaps a newbie, this is the video for you. So if you're new here, my name is Warrick. I'm your host on the I Love Fourways show, a community-based podcast show where we interview experts, the go-to people. We seek business owners, people that love what they do what they love, that are great at what they're doing. Today I have the opportunity of interviewing Tyron Selmon, who is an art gallery extraordinaire. Firstly, welcome to the show, Ty. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Warrick. It's really exciting to be here, and it's lovely to be able to talk to your audience about collecting art, enthralled with art, and what the pitfalls are, and where you start, and how you move forward with art.
Ty, who owns numerous art galleries throughout South Africa, which is exactly why I'm so delighted to interview Ty, because I think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to how to choose it, what newbies get wrong. If art is something that you appreciate and want to learn more about and perhaps a newbie, this is the video for you. Let's start with your journey. Tell us how you started off.
So I kind of fell into the arts. It wasn't something that I started out getting into the arts. I was working in Switzerland for Swiss bankers and started looking at putting educated art into a project that we were working on. I was doing interiors.
Interior decorating.
Interior design and decorating, yeah. And I was a little perplexed as to who we were as a society, how we were interacting with each other, and what that looked like. So traditional African art has always kind of been Zulus in huts, and contemporary African art has always been over-curated by a lot of the bigger galleries. Printmaking was something that was very traditionally European, but then emerged into South Africa with multiple prints for young emerging black artists in the day. With some unbelievable forerunners in the art industry. And I started to look around and look at auctions and see...
Is this when you were still in Switzerland?
Okay. Well, when I'd come back to South Africa and start looking...
What year was that?
2008 to 2010. So I started doing research. I started coming back and going to auctions and looking at stuff. And while I was traveling abroad, I started to realize that nowhere in the world that I've seen do you have access to such educated art as you do in this country. Because our audience is so small, we take for granted that we have access to extremely good artists. The value of something is not to do with the price of something.
That is something I want to deep dive into. A very intriguing conversation. I mean, there's so many questions going off in my head now. It's obviously you have a wealth of information, and I'm going to try to break it down piece by piece. So please bear with me, Ty.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier, just to backtrack a little bit, about art galleries. So you went to art galleries. Like, was it for your intent to, you just personally loved art and you wanted to get into the industry, or buy it for your home or for clients as an interior decorator?
No, I think I started to do some research. I've always loved art. I've always collected art.
Why to you is art so beautiful? What do you appreciate about it?
I think in South Africa in particular, I think we're a very interesting society. We're very multicultural. You know, I grew up on a farm in the Drakensberg. I went to private school in CBC in Pretoria. I went to public schools. There's a little bit of Zulu in us. There's a little bit of Xhosa in us. There's a little bit of my Jewish heritage. There's a lot of my Afrikaans heritage. So we're a real melting pot. You know, South Africa has 11 different cultures. So for me, art has always been an intriguing way to layer stories. Yeah.
Not one particular, but art, African
as a
art
whole.
As a whole. I mean, Okay, so
Well, I'm not a Zulu man, but I can look at a traditional Zulu painting and I can understand the integrity behind it and I can understand the love behind it. For me, it's not what German tourists come to the country and see. They come to the country and they see a narrative that we are supposed to fit the world with, not what we really are. And I think that cultures are important. I think that understanding cultures are important. I think that connecting culturally is important. And I think that art is a wonderful way to be able to connect with one another, an important way to connect with one another.
a little bit earlier, some new paintings come in, and it's just incredible how, as they come in, it's like how you articulate a story with the painting. And I'm like, wait, I want to film you. I thought that is so beautiful. I hope to show the viewers there, but just the way you articulate what you see in a picture.
So the story with Welcome's work is that washing lines in rural areas are very much cultural storytellers in terms of what is going on in households. So you can always see by the clothing hanging on the line. So this body of work speaks to the fact of the birth, the new birth of babies, the reaction of society, and how that interplays with people's social understanding of one another. So that one's sold to Austria, that's going to Joseph. He's paid for that. I like this one as well. I think it's very clever. He's such a phenomenal storyteller. He really and truly is a phenomenal storyteller. I also love the Gucci and the Louis Vuitton and the Mercedes. He's great. It was my favorite. So society has turned itself upside down. So that's the story, is that society has literally turned itself on its head. Yet the world carries on. Look at how clever he is. Look at the butterfly over there that's pixelated. And then look at his soft storytelling with that blanket. I mean, that blanket is just incredible. You want to actually wrap that blanket around you.
Appreciate art, but to take it to another level, as in, which is where you come in.
I think, Warrick, not everybody is an art collector, not everybody is an art lover. It's a very specific clientele that we cater to. It's a very specific audience that we have. Often we get young artists coming in here and they're perplexed as to why we won't take them on. It's not our audience. Our audience is a very specific clientele, and it's got nothing to do with money. It's got to do with integrity. It's got to do with finding yourself. We deal in specifically mid-career artists. The artist you were talking about now is Welcome Danca. He's a Zulu artist. He's one of the most special human beings I've ever known. We've been working together for way over a decade. He's recently just been invited by the Schutz Museum in Austria to show. They've put him into exhibitions in Vienna. So he sat for 15 years with us and really and truly didn't find his audience. And as of recently, he's found his audience in Austria. He's doing extremely well abroad. Now people in South Africa are starting to notice his cultural storytelling. He is an artist that was trained by the likes of some very early South African artists, contemporary South African artists, people that come from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And that school of artists is dying. You must remember that social media didn't exist 10 years ago. So in the last 10 years, we've seen such a rise of fashionable art that's copied from around the world. So youngsters get onto social media today, they live on social media, and they use social media for inspiration. We want to be part of the journey that were artists that were telling traditional cultural storytelling in their own vein. So Tony Biko behind us. Tony Biko is an abstract artist. When we took him on, nobody wanted abstract.
South African?
Yeah, South African, Portuguese South African, but as South African as anybody is South African. We go through fashionable spurts. You know, if you look at Pantone colors on design, every year there's a Pantone color, and then everybody puts out a range like that. We've tried to stay in a vein with artists that just tell stories. They tell cultural stories, and they're not often stories that you want to buy and put on your wall. But slowly we're finding a new collector emerging within the marketplace.
And what's that?
You know, the majority of our country is color, people of color. Jews, Afrikaners, Europeans, Germans. Germans have been big supporters of the arts for years. And you can't discount that we have an art market today because of European influence. However, Africa is the birthplace of contemporary art. If you look at the greats, Picasso, Matisse, most great artists around the world, the masters that everybody goes to see in museums, were inspired by Africa. So we wanted to stay in a vein where it allowed people to connect to something that they connected to. We try very hard not to sell art. It is important that there is a financial nod and thank you within the industry, and good art shouldn't be cheap. Good art should cost you some money. However, we're a very young market with a very small base of collectors in this country, and as a result, artists tend to become more fashionable in order to sell more. So at Art Eye Gallery, what we try and do is give a platform to art with integrity. Art that's not trying to sell. Art that's trying to find its voice, and it's trying to speak to its audience. And what's really interesting is that there is a new young collector, and when I say young, anywhere from 25 to 50, that is coming to the market that is looking to find something personable.
The first thing that comes to mind, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. In other words, it's fingerprint specific. Somebody might pay millions for something, whereas somebody else is like, what you're on about? You know, so
So you must remember that there's the art of art and then there's the business of art. And the two have very little to do with one another. However, the art of art certainly needs the business of art to be able to make it sustainable. So as a gallerist, and I would almost say that we're not a gallery, we're art dealers. We have a showroom, we have a gallery, it's not a traditional gallery.
And you're very fingerprint specific who you allow.
Well, we're very
how do you choose
fingerprint specific in terms of they're works that we will hang on the wall and we will leave up for 8 months because they deserve the time. We don't take them down because they're not selling. And what we find is that there's generally a 2-year turnaround with our clientele. Our clientele don't walk in and fall in love with art immediately. They walk in and they keep coming back. And then after 2 years, we have to slow them down because they really kind of understand the integrity behind the art. I didn't invent the art. None of the artists did we create. We simply gave them a platform to be able to take the time to talk to their audience. People are really educated. People are really clever. And people are really good at making good choices given the right choices platformed in front of them. If you're going to galleries where there's proteas and vases forever, that's what you think art is. You need diversity. You need, if you're an art collector, you need to go to every single gallery and every single opening because lots of people are not our clients and lots of people put good collections together from many different galleries. We happen to be one of those galleries, but we are one of those galleries that stayed in our lane. We haven't swung from what we do from the day that we started.
Which is when, Ty? When did you start?
We started 14 years ago. Okay. We started not as a gallery, we started as an office. We were dealing in a lot of top-end stuff for big museums and collectors, stuff in their millions. And then I started to realize how many people that could afford really expensive stuff were coming and saying, who are the new kids on the block? Who's exciting? Who's interesting? And human nature is an interesting factor. I didn't invent it, but I certainly am a study of human nature. People generally want to invest in art that's already successful. I think it speaks to developing an eye. Some people buy gold shares, some people buy cars, some people buy watches, some people buy houses, some people buy art. Unfortunately, art has become a tradable commodity, which it doesn't make me unhappy, but Andy Warhol once coined a phrase which was so good. He went in to go and see a big collector's collection, and as he walked in, the collector said, "Oh, I paid $28 million for that." And he said, "Well, why don't you put $28 million on the wall? You didn't tell me about the art."
Wow,
so
okay.
A lot of artists become about the price of the work. So a lot of artists become so high-end that eventually people are not talking about the art, they're talking about the price. And I think you failed then. However, is it important that top-end art sells? 100%, because unlike cell phone money, which leaves the country, so most of the money that turns in IT and cell phones and large corporate businesses doesn't end up staying within the loop in this country. However, art does. People become collectors of South African artists, and then they will sell a work for top-end money and they'll buy another work. So it's a sustainable structure within the arts. It also is a really good soft touch to getting the rest of the world to look at us and understand that we're a lot more complex and a lot more interesting and a lot more sophisticated than people give us credit for.
Travel globally, are you specifically relating that our art in Africa is complex, which, the rainbow nations, are you saying it's more complex than...
Yeah, we're very complex. We've been pitted against each other for so long that I was confused when I got into the industry. Everybody wanted to buy young black male artists' work, particularly male. And I was like, well, what about young black female artists? And then I started to look at young black female artists, and young black female artists don't exist. They're few and far between. And then I started to look at the patriarchal society of who we are and how that relates to young women not becoming great artists a lot of the time. It is changing, and it needs to have been broken for it to be able to be fixed. We can only do better if we're coming from a place of not having done better.
Ty, tell me, what advice would you give to somebody wanting to buy or new to the art industry or wanting to buy art?
So it's pretty easy, and I think that people complicate it for themselves. My husband's very different to what I am. He needs 6 weeks of research. I respond by my gut. We're all different, and our call to action is all different, but if I had to put my finger on one thing, it would be to start. Just start. Just find something that you're comfortable buying, find something that you trust is reasonable, and buy that. Great art is accessible. There are unbelievable auctions, there are unbelievable galleries, there are unbelievable artists.
And just as a reminder, the art, by buying it, taking it home, some people want to bring out a darker side, some people want to be inspired when they come into the kitchen or their bedroom. So is that...
You have to decide whether you're an art collector or an art lover. 90% of the people that walk into our gallery are not art collectors. They really want something to make their room feel like home. They want it to match the curtains and match the couch, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. If you have an aesthetic design in your mind's eye, stick with that. But do the research. Great art is not going to jump out of a website or out of a gallery or out of a drawer or out of an artist's studio and run down to your house and hang itself on the wall. It's just not going to do that. Dedicate some time, put some time into it, and go and do your research. Oprah Winfrey was once interviewed and she was asked, what is the single most important thing you can tell humanity? And she said, trust your gut. You'll know when the right piece of art comes along. You'll know when, and expect to make mistakes. You're definitely going to make mistakes. Find a tribe, find a dealer, find an art gallery or find a few. I think that we're starting to recognize the value of arts in our country.
Speak to me about that. Why do you say that?
I think because we wanted to be a space, and when we created Art Eye Gallery, we wanted it to be a family. We wanted it to be bigger than me, bigger than my name, bigger than my curation. So it's not all about me. It's about the art in South Africa. It's about a specific art in South Africa, which is an honest art. So we obviously can't represent everybody, and like when you're finding your partner in life, you don't always, you gotta kiss a few people to be able to find the perfect person for you. And I might think they're perfect and you might think that they're not perfect. And that's very much what the arts is we'd love to be able to have a society that everybody stops long enough to see somebody's value, but that's not how it works. So we can only put together what we can put together, but Art Eye Gallery was really put together to be able to give a sustainable structure to a handful of artists that would then pay it forward. Colbert Mashili was with us in the early days, back when very few people were looking at his work and understanding his work. However, before me, it was with Gallery 2. There's so many people that layer and add value to the arts in this country. It's become a big business now, and it's become overtraded. There are some very interesting understandings of art and how people like to overpay. It's a problem, but it's a problem that's figuring itself out. So, art collecting, I think, allows us to reflect a little bit more with each other. It's a safe space to have some great conversations. I've had grown men burst into tears here. Interestingly, as a patriarchal society, men are very often removed from personal emotions. And I've said to some South African men and African men in the gallery, like, do you have conversations with your kids that are more personal, or your wife? And they're like, it's not in our culture. And I'm like, in Afrikaans culture, it's very similar. In most cultures, patriarchal cultures, it's the man has to be a warrior, and he doesn't step over that boundary and have conversations that are more personal. We've had grown-ass men burst into tears in this gallery.
Just by coming in and looking at a painting, that really?
The amount of men bringing their kids into the gallery.
Just to look at
and
an art
talk
and
to their kids
crying.
and ask their kids' opinions. We're changing, we're evolving. And I think at a stage of my career within the arts, I had an idea that I wanted to be showing young artists how to become more international.
How do you do that?
Well, I don't anymore, because I think what I've managed to figure out, and it was a very well-known dealer from Paris that came out to meet with us. And he'd gone to a big art fair in the country, and he was a little disillusioned because a lot of it was fashionable art copied from other artists around the world. And he sent me a message saying, I'm not going to come and visit you. We were in the inner city at the time. And he said, I'm not going to come visit you. I don't think South Africa's for me. And I said to him, please, just come and spend an hour at our gallery and just have a look around. I don't do the art fairs because I kind of figure our tribe will find us. So do they need to find you at an art fair? Sometimes they do. However, after 12 years of a gallery and social media and marketing, we have a huge international base of collectors. Anyway, he arrived at the gallery and he walked around the gallery. We left him alone for an hour and he sat down and he said to me, let me be clear. You don't have African artists. You have international artists that happen to be from Africa. And it pivoted my understanding that we cling to Africa as being our identity. And Africa is not our identity. Humanity is our identity. So if we change the way that we think and we start to think on a global scale, and that global scale is we're human beings having a human experience on planet Earth, all from different backgrounds, but it's our differences that make us great. That's when we win. When we are segregated by politicians and politics to be able to control us and create narratives that are not best for our agenda, we fail.
Art speaks culturally, politically. Ty Can you share this journey, how Art Eye Gallery, from its inception to the prestigious gallery it is today, and that you have different branches in different parts of the country?
So you mentioned earlier on staying in your lane, and I think that's what's been our success. We've had a rough couple of years. COVID, the industry is constantly shifting and changing. There were very few galleries, in actual fact almost none, selling contemporary art when we started.
When you talk contemporary art, now we're going complexity. You get modern art, you get sculptures, would you mind going through?
Contemporary art just means that it's art of the day. It's the art that's being made today. Contemporary art, so modern art is anything from the past that was above its time, was ahead of its time, was seen as modern. Modern art is very much anything that was ahead of its time. Trevor Coleman was involved in the op art movement, and he was doing op art in South Africa. It was a very small group of people that understood op art and that were involved in that movement, to the point that he eventually had to move to London, and he went to go and live in London. He worked with some of the country's greatest artists that are recognized in England. His best friend was Francis Souza, Isaac Whitkin, who was Henry Moore's assistant. So when I spoke to him, I said to him, "Did you meet Henry?" He said, "Yeah, I used to hang out at the studio." David Hockney, he knew. There was modern art is anything that's ahead of its time.
Okay, but on that, with me, like modern art in the 1960s, looking at it now is not modern art. In other words, it's very in the time modern art.
No.
Are you saying modern art will
No,
always
it's still
be modern
very
art?
modern. You know, even today, don't fully understand Trevor Coleman's work. They think he's a little bit messy and a little bit outside of the lines. And, you know, in the 1950s at art school, he was asked by one of his lecturers, "Why is your art so messy? Why is it outside the lines? And why is it so colorful?" So everything in the arts is connected. Right from the beginning to the end, reinvented storytelling. We decided, after seeing the ugly side of the art world, that we wanted to be invested in the journey with an artist, the understanding of how we got from point A to point B with an artist.
So that inspired the name brand Art Eye Gallery.
Correct, because the one good thing that I have is a good eye. We decided that we were just going to find great artists that constantly told stories. We were once asked, what is the call to action for an artist? And my call to action is if we never sold another painting, would you keep painting? And 98% of our artists, the answer is yes. So they arrived with great work. They continue to do great work, whether they sell or they don't, because anything, like any business, is up and down. They continue to tell stories. Lionel Murcott, thousands and thousands of works that he's produced over his career. In my lifetime, we won't be able to find a home for each particular work. But Picasso, when Picasso died, he had 15,000 works in his studio that nobody had seen.
A long time ago, a story came across with Picasso when he was painting in a forest park. And he was painting, and a mom with her little daughter came running. And the little daughter ran up to Picasso and said, "Mommy, Mommy, I want the painting." And Picasso literally drew a little doggy, and it took him 30 seconds. And the mom said, "Mr. Picasso, how much is it for that painting?" And Picasso said, "Ma'am, it's $30. Then the mom said, "But Picasso, it took you 30 seconds to do that." And then Picasso says, "No, madam, it took me 30 years to do that in 30 seconds." Which I think is a beautiful story.
It's like the Alan Gray advert of the little boy who picks up the books for the young girl who's not the prettiest girl, and he walks her home and all of his friends are laughing because she's not the prettiest. And the mom opens the door, and the mother's Sophia Loren. And it's understanding potential. But remember something, it's all subjective. Your idea of beauty and my idea of beauty are very different ideas of beauty. What we like as human beings is what makes us comfortable. We decided to create a gallery that drew you out of your comfort zone. We're more interested when people react very seriously to an artwork And that might be, oh my God, I hate that. And I often say to people, the work that you hate the most is the work that you need to look at the most. Because we like to look at stuff that stays in our comfort zone. You don't grow by being in your comfort zone. We do a 2-year exchange program. So if you buy work from us, for up to 2 years, you're allowed to exchange it. So
What do you mean
we
by
won't give your money back, but we'll allow you to bring the work back and we'll exchange it for what you paid. So
For another piece of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So that you're not trapped into it. You know, it's generally good art should cost a little bit of money. And when somebody's spending 30,000 Rand or 40,000 or 10,000, people want to know that they're not trapped into to buying that art or having to live with that art. So we allow them to come and do a 2-year exchange program. And the reason we allow that 2-year exchange program is because they don't. They really and truly don't. 9 times out of 10 people say to us, Christ, I love that work. You know, the more I look at it, the more it makes my soul happy. And isn't that what life is supposed to be? You're supposed to look at your partner. You're supposed to look at your life around you, and you're supposed to go, wow, I find that inspirational. And not everything inspirational is supposed to be happy. You know, we sold a work once which was by an artist we used to represent, and it was a woman sitting on a chair with a veil over, and the side of her face had turned to a skull. It's by an artist called Margot Schupf. And we sold a lady a painting, went down to Cape Town. She unwrapped the painting, she put it on the wall, and we always phone our clients. You know, for us, the deal is not a successful deal until it's on the client's wall and the client goes, wow, that's amazing. And I phoned her and I said to her, are you okay with the work now that you've seen it? Are you happy? And she said, I love it. So I said to her, it's not an easy work to live with. Can I ask you why, so that I learn? Why would you buy that work? And she said to me that her husband had died tragically, like a couple of months before. And she was so tired of everybody saying to her, it's fine, it's going to be okay. She said, I'm okay with the fact that it's not okay. She said, I want something that's not pretty flowers, because my life is not pretty flowers at the moment. So it reminds her of a strength that she drew from deep inside. You know, people never got abstract in this country. Now, abstract is huge in South Africa, because what you see is in the eye of the beholder. We're developing our own personal skill set of understanding and deconstructing ourselves. And by deconstructing ourselves, we're realizing that we're layered. Thus, we don't need things to fit into our boxes. We're quite happy to have things that lead us down a road and down a path to finding and discovering more about ourselves. And that's what great art does.
Ty, can you describe a pivotal moment that significantly impacted the growth of Art Eye Gallery?
I would absolutely have to say every negative person that walked into the gallery, every negative experience that we had, literally almost physically threw somebody out the gallery. They were extremely rude about Trevor Coleman's work. And that was a pivotal point, because we all have opinions. Doesn't mean our opinions are correct, but what I found was that as a society, we tend to repeat other people's opinions. We don't develop our own opinions. And we're afraid of having our own opinions because our own opinions are judged. And when we're judged, we feel like we don't belong. And I think the great thing about South Africa is that none of us belong, yet we all belong. We all belong to this great nation we call the Rainbow Nation. So a pivotal point for me would be everybody that said, oh my God, my child could do that. Oh my God, that's terrible. Oh my God, you're never going to succeed. Oh my God, it's bad and you can't do this. Or everybody that's tried to bring us down has been a pivotal point for me to dig in even harder and showcase the raw, honest, beautiful integrity that is the art that we represent in this country. Because let me tell you, 98% of people are exceptionally beautiful and connected. It's a small minority that want to pull you down. So pivotal points are every COVID. We shifted. We moved to the city. We were in the city. We invested
you move it
Millions.
to the city? Where were you prior COVID?
So we started at Design Quarter, and then the gallery grew just by, you can't grow something if there's no need. So we're in Ballito, at the Lifestyle Centre in Ballito, and we're in Gowrie Village. Gowrie Village in Natal Midlands.
Oh, okay.
We curated the huge Brahman Hills gardens, world class. They've won the RHS award. Can you imagine that, Natal has always seemed to be the poorer cousin to the Cape. Cape seems to have a longer heritage, yet Natal is unbelievably powerful. There's some exceptional talent in Natal because they were well-traveled people. We were invited to curate the gardens at Brahman Hills, designed by Tim Stein. It's won Royal Horticultural Society of the Year award. So it's 4.5 hours drive from Johannesburg. Climb in your car, head down. So we've put beautiful sculptures into the gardens that are reflective and speak to cultural connections within our country, and finding a space that's a safe space to reconnect with one another. So we've opened up a little gallery in the Natal Midlands in Nottingham Road in Gowrie Village. And it's a small gallery, but it services a large community of Londoners, of Cape Townians. It's a big wedding venue area. So a lot of people go and meet for weddings. So we've got a great audience there. Ballito is astounding. The amount of local and international people that head to the Lifestyle Centre in Ballito is astounding, really astounding. So, and then of course Johannesburg is our key audience, which has been very good to us over the years, and predominantly the northern suburbs has been very good for us over the years. We develop clientele and our clients become our family.
Has any of your customers that have come in, have they asked you if they could meet the artists, or is it?
Absolutely.
So
the moment you buy a work from us, so almost every single time, we will say to our clients, please get online, please go and follow the artist on Instagram, please go and say thank you, tell them what you bought in the gallery. So there's an old saying that I learned years ago that says, if you emotionalize things, you magnetize them. So we've been quite berated within the industry for saying that we don't sell paintings, and we don't. We sell stories. We tell stories. We share the emotional journey that led to this painting being on the wall. The fact that you're gonna buy it, that's your choice. You have the intelligence. I've even got family members that say to me, oh, but you obviously tell people what to buy. That's simply not true. Absolutely not true. My call to action with somebody buying a piece of art is always, if you don't buy it today, and you phone me next week and say, I want to buy it, and I say, I'm sorry, it's sold, will you be distraught? Will you be really sad? And if you won't be really sad, don't buy it.
The Mona Lisa, if you, without if you told a little story to the best of your ability about the Mona Lisa, I'm very curious to know, like, how would you describe it, the painting?
I've actually seen the Mona Lisa. I went to the Louvre and I saw the Mona Lisa, and you must remember that people are looking at a painting that's now famous. So they're not looking at the painting, they're looking at the picture of the painting. What makes Mona Lisa so special?
That's what I'm asking you, yeah.
Is her intrigue. You don't really know who she is. You don't really know what she's thinking. Often we'll have a painting in the gallery and it looks sad. And I'll challenge people to ask themselves the question, are they responding to what they're feeling by looking at the painting, or is the painting got a deeper message? So the Mona Lisa is intrigue. The reason she's famous is she's beautifully painted, but she's intriguing. You don't know what she's thinking. You don't know. It's her smile, it's her look, it's her understanding, it's her engagement with her audience. Very famous dealer called Egon Gunther I met with years ago. And I was asking him what his call to understanding was for beautiful sculpture. So he worked with the Amaglosi group, he worked with Esrim Lachai and Satole and Kamalo, and I said to him, Egon, what was that thing that made you go, that's a great sculpture? And he recited a story about another famous artist. They used to have soirees on a Sunday afternoon. And at one of the soirees, all the men were gathered around because this famous artist always arrived with beautiful looking woman on his arm. And they all were intrigued, because they were all married men, to see who the beautiful girl was that he was going to arrive with. And he said this artist arrived with a very plain looking girl on his arm. And Aegon said that he realized within minutes that he'd wounded her deeply by his dismissal of her because she didn't fit the bill of what they all expected as a beautiful woman. He said, and let me tell you, young man, he said a half an hour later, she was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen in my entire life. So great art is not always what you look at, but it's what you see, and it's what sees you. And like the Mona Lisa, great art looks into your soul, and it owns a space that belongs to only you. And that's why people buy art, and that's why they pay for art. And that's why great art becomes great art. So there's the trading commodity section of art that everybody finds a fashionable artist and invests, but then it becomes like gold shares. It's no longer about the art. It's about the price of the art. It's about walking into somebody's house and going, oh my God, you own a, and people understand.
That is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
You know, but it's not the art of art. It's the business of art. It's the same as Warhol saying, don't tell me how much it cost. Tell me about the painting. So at Art Eye Gallery, you can't keep great art down. People say to me, how do you make an artist famous? You don't make an artist famous. You continue to tell stories. You continue to find an audience. You know, William Kentridge was interviewed and he was asked, why do you need to go abroad to become famous? And he said, are you aware that I'm half the age of Johannesburg? And I was like, that can't be true. That can't be true. And Trevor Coleman was having a conversation with me, and Trevor said, Tyron, I was at the centenary. And it was like, you were at the centenary, the birthday party for 100 years old. You were at Joburg's 100-year-old birthday party. And he said, yeah, I was. So I'm in my 50s. I'm a quarter of the age of Johannesburg. Now figure that into your understanding of art buyers and art collectors in this country. We're a very young base of collectors. But it is changing, and the next 10 years is going to see unbelievable growth. Social media, well, social media didn't exist, so you know the whole gallery system
when
and the whole
changing. Like, what comes to mind? What triggers you?
So people don't understand that business shifts. So how many people remember Kodak?
Oh wow!
There's a whole group of people that don't understand who Kodak is.
No.
They will never know what Kodak was.
That was the thing.
And they were warned to go digital, and they said, nobody's going to go digital. You can't stop evolution, but you can look at it and understand it, and you can...
Okay, so what does that look like the Netflix thing? Can you call? What does that look like? Are we talking from painting? Is it going digital now? What is the change happening now?
Everything will go digital eventually. But that doesn't mean that paint on canvas won't still exist.
Or writing books when...
There will be spikes. So you must remember that we have very few women artists in patriarchal societies because women are expected to get married and have babies and raise families and generally tend to find themselves in their 50s after self-sacrificing. You know, societies wouldn't raise themselves without the women of our societies. So finding women artists is incredibly difficult. It is shifting and it is changing.
Is there a need for...
Absolutely, there's a need for female...
coming in saying, do you have any female art?
No, so, you know, I don't enjoy being asked the race of an artist or the... Am I happy to... If you like buying young black Zulu work, artist work, I'm okay with that. If you collect porcelain and you collect porcelain from a certain time made by a certain artist, that's your choice. But if you want to know great art, it should be great art, regardless of the race or the age or the gender of the artist. A very famous dealer years ago in South Africa said to me, if an artist is not famous by the age of 40, they'll never make it. Simply not true. I can whip out a list of world famous artists that didn't make it until they were way into their 50s, 60s, some in their 80s. Robert Hodgins only really kind of cracked it very late in life. The gallery system has changed. The way that we interact with art has changed. Most good gallerists don't overprice their art. They let their art find a value system, and then they share in that value system with the artists as they build their careers. And nothing is static. Nobody stays anywhere forever. But there needs to be an integrity within the business where people hold hands with one another. So in the early days, if you go back 15 years ago, if you walked into the Everard Reed Gallery and you saw an artist and you liked that artist, you had to buy that artist's work, because there was no way of tracking that artist down and going to go and meet them and see them because you were busy.
You mentioned earlier, it's a fantastic idea. In other words, if you buy an art piece, 2 years later, you have an opportunity of, changing the art. Okay, so that's one sort of nuance that you taught me today, thank you. The other is do you rent out art and
No.
the pieces? So, all right.
So we've been approached, and I do think that there are businesses that do it abroad and do very successfully. When you're renting out art, it's for the imagery. So it's, I'd like a big colorful painting with yellow flowers in it for my lounge to match the curtains.
Or a wedding day, like one day or something.
That's not the art that we represent.
Okay.
That's not to say that that art isn't great. Art should make you happy as well. And there are lots of spaces where you can buy beautiful landscapes and flowers in vases, and it's just not what we do as a gallery. We're more interested.
Speak to me more about what you do as a gallery.
Well, so we're more interested in
Africa art is very big.
So
for you.
contemporary South African art and contemporary South African art in an unaffected space is art that's born from the soul. So I'm a great believer that talent can be taught. Can great talent stand out above that? 100%. But you can become a really good artist if you practice. You really can. And then it's painting imagery. And if you paint flowers, or you paint landscapes, or you paint fine art, that's fantastic. The more you paint, the better you get. We're more interested in the art that is a little like verbal diarrhea, that just can't stop itself, that just needs to come out. Juanita Fryer, when I started representing Juanita, everybody said, "Oh, it's crazy, my child could do that." Well, wasn't she the very first artist to be chosen by the Schutz Museum in Austria? And she sold in Vienna, she sold in China, she sold in, oh my goodness, Los Angeles, Mexico, London, New York, London, Morocco. I don't think that there's a continent. No, I haven't been to Mexico. We've traveled internationally and we market our artists internationally. We print brochures and take them to big galleries. Our job is to be able to get our artists international opportunities. Their job is to make sure that they keep the integrity of the business structure in place so that we can help and facilitate the next kid on the block stepping up. So we deal in mid-career artists. And in a lifetime, you won't be able to facilitate everybody. But along that journey, you discover greatness. I'm a great believer that raw, honest art is all connected via a cultural cosmic thread that just ties people together.
Wow.
People will walk in and have an emotional response to something and not understand why. Michelle Silk did a whole series of old people, and I thought that we would be selling to the Kloof crowd, and that's not at all who bought her work. The demographic of people that bought her work astounded me. It was young Africans in their 30s that connected with the work and really fell in love. So there is a cosmic thread through honest art that has integrity.
What sets Art Our Gallery apart from other galleries in terms of celebrating Africa art?
So I think that people assume that all galleries are the same, and we're not. We all have our own individual identity, and we all have the things that we stand for. During COVID, during the riots, I had the roller shutters closed, and we'd really battled to be able to get through COVID. It wasn't the greatest 2 years ever. People were behaving extremely badly, and I had the roller shutters closed halfway, and I remember standing in front of an artwork by Michelle Silk, actually, and looking at the artwork, and I thought, what are you doing here? The thing that sets us apart is the integrity that it's not about the money, that it's about the art. And interestingly, the money finds us. Interestingly, we've managed to pay all of our bills. We've managed to pay all of our artists. We've managed to keep our doors open and grow the business. And I think that's simply through integrity, which is extremely hard. There are times when it is extremely hard to stay in that lane. We've tried to keep the passion for art at the foreground of the gallery. And it is quite astounding, the audience, both locally and internationally, that we've managed to develop, that people now feel like they own a bit of art. It's become the place that speaks to their soul.
Ty, tell me, how do you balance your personal artistic vision with the commercial aspects of running Art Art Gallery?
That's very difficult, extremely difficult. You stay committed. You stay committed and you refuse to fail. You keep doing what you're doing. The industry and the gallery system is in turmoil. It's extremely difficult. I'm 100% committed to believing that as a society, we want integrity. As a society, we want authenticity. As South Africans, that's what we stand for. I think we're an incredible people. The universe has been kind to us. We have a phenomenal base of collectors that keep coming back to us year after year. That although social media is a phenomenal tool to tell stories, it stopped people coming into galleries. It stopped people having a human experience. Whereas really what we're asking you to do, is come into the gallery and see the art, stand in front of it and have an emotional response to it. You can see the photograph on social media, but you really need to stand in front of the work to have that emotional response and connection.
Ty, earlier you mentioned that story of, a father bringing in, whether it's a child or even just fully grown men, look and just start crying. In other words, that emotion, I think I get goosebumps sharing that. I think it's just, there's something there that's far greater, and as you say, than just, there's something extraordinary about that.
Johan Smit, who was the editor of Taal magazine, who passed away just after COVID, he was the first wedding at Art Art Gallery. And we're not a venue.
You mean a wedding in?
He got married in our inner city, and it took probably another 6 years before we developed a relationship with them and then started promoting South African artists to an audience that's a primarily Afrikaans-based audience, which we loved because it was cross-cultural storytelling. So we've had, I think, another 4 weddings.
Yeah.
In the gallery, engagements.
Oh.
So we've had proposals in the gallery. We've had.
That's, in other words, a little dinner.
So men setting up dates in the gallery. We get a lot of people coming here for dates.
The restaurant, and
they will set up a little snack
so
here,
cool.
and then they will propose to their loved one in the gallery.
That is so cool. But is this something like ad hoc?
There's a new age youngster that's coming to galleries, that's asking questions. We just had the American school that their creative arts writing class for remedial class asked us if they could bring 20 or 25 students to the gallery so that they could have an emotional response to art and then write a poem about it. They're now printing a book based on those poems, and such unbelievable insight. Tara from Sandton City, from Sandton, the Tara Clinic, people going through emotional challenges.
Medical clinic?
The medical clinic for emotionally challenged people. So they brought a whole lot of patients out one day.
What was the feedback from that?
Unbelievable. There was a scientist that stood in front of the works by Thokozani Mtiani, and he said to me, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "No." And he said to me, "That's the Big Bang. That's the beginning of everything in time. That's what he's painted." We are so layered and so connected in Africa to the human experience, to the earth. We live outside. We have beautiful weather. So whereas in Europe, everybody lives indoors most of the year because it's cold, we live outdoors for the majority of the year. We're so much more connected to the earth and to the human experience. That art is such a soft touch to be able to reconnect with ourselves and have that as the experience.
You mentioned 3 lovely experiences now. Being around inspiration, just your mood changes from that, and the engagement, and perhaps a date. I think that is, for a really special day, to take somebody's special art in your beautiful gallery. Is it something you would do like monthly, or is it purely
we
for
do
special
events.
people
We've
that you will
worked
make
with
arrange?
Mercedes-Benz. We've worked with the Saxon. We've done huge eventing with the Saxon, with Mercedes-Benz.
So it's
we
not
do
just
stuff
one
at Marble.
date, it's
We
a
do
function.
stuff at Stain City with Cafe del Sol. I said the Brahman Hills experience. Our job as art dealers, representative of the arts, is a soft touch to getting people to feel safe and engage. Every business is different. If you go to Cartier in Paris, 9 times out of 10 the door's not open. You've got to look like you've got some money and you've got to make an appointment. Every business is different. We wanted to be a community-based business that showcased educated art and got emotional responses.
And how do you do that? How do you educate the local community?
Time. So our social media is huge.
Okay.
So we're at 47,000, I think, and we on Instagram. That's all organic. Not one like has been bought. And the reason is that we had a client, Mike from Cerebra and Garth from Joe Public and Gareth from Joe Public, and they said to us, find your tribe. Find the people that are your people, of who your audience is and who your tribe is.
Word of mouth, tribe, word of mouth, I think is...
Well, so we get referred a lot. We get a lot of people. I would say that probably 60% of our business is international now and online. The gallery is here for artists to be able to hang. So we don't do a lot of shows in terms of one-off shows, because a show needs to be up for at least 3 weeks, and that marginalizes any other artist. So we changed the system to make sure that you could at any time come into the gallery. We had people that came in and bought the other day. They're from Washington, D.C. We had people from
You mean they
Boston.
flew all the way here?
Well, they were in holiday here,
And they happened to see
happened
your
to Google Art Gallery, happened to come to Art Eye, and then they get a true understanding of a good base rather than one artist on a wall. So
You have a
our
beautiful
system,
gallery
our
here.
system is different to other people's systems, and it evolves. It's changing. We are going to start going back to shows. We are going to start going back to events. People stopped coming out during COVID, and now I think people are a little bit more ready to venture out and make new friends. We encourage people to come and meet other like-minded people at our events and make friends, and they do.
Wine, cheesy events?
Yeah, absolutely.
Weekly, monthly? How
We've got Bubbles and Biscuits coming up now, which is
Bubbles and biscuits.
Bubbles and Biscuits, which is probably a Thursday or a Friday afternoon. It's to invite...
Monthly? Is this a monthly? Annual? Monthly?
Yeah, we do movie evenings. We do...
Movie evenings? What's...
Jesse Clegg has come to the gallery. He's he's coming back again shortly to do an unplugged event where it's... Yeah. If you get online and you have a look, we're new here to the Dainfern region. It's slow touch. But yeah, we did the big Brahman Hills experience. We met the Beast, who's just an amazing human being. Yeah, Tendai Matwarira, the rugby player, and he's talking to us about coming to launch his foundation here. It's about holding hands with people. It's not about feeding off industries. It's not about aligning yourself with super brands. We didn't go to Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes came to us. And when I asked them, what is the call? It's to support the arts and to be part of the arts and to have a soft touch, to talk to people on a level that's really not based about business. You know, it's a super brand, Mercedes. It doesn't need the arts to sell itself, but it's a wonderful way to be able to engage with and talk to people and create content.
Humanity aspect.
South Africa was built on holding hands.
Oh, wow.
We stopped holding hands.
If you're in the Dainfern area, if you're in the Sandton area, surrounding areas, Thais highly recommend. Thank you for your time today.
It's such a pleasure. We have a big team here available to talk to you guys. So it's not just myself. We've got a phenomenal team between here, the village in Gowrie, in the Natal Midlands, and if you're in Ballito at the Lifestyle Centre. We are so keen to engage and talk and just offer our opinion. We are very passionate about what we do, and you should be too. So thank you so much for coming to see us.
It was my absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. And thank you, and I hope to see you in future episodes.
We'll see you soon.